like I'd heard this said back 6 or 7 years ago that populism runs into this problem where people try it, and then once you realize that it doesn't work, like you'll get a populist leader elected, and then nothing ends up like working out because obviously populists will promise you the sky and deliver you nothing. That once those movements break apart, like everybody just kind of is like aimless and lost. And I think you saw it happen with, not to attack Bernie Sanders because I think he's respectable, but you saw it happen kind of, I think, with the Bernie Sanders movement. A lot of big progressives started to come up through that, and then once Bernie Sanders was gone, that movement fell into utter chaos, and all of those people are like, in my opinion, horrible people now. So like Brianna Joy Gray is a horrible person. Jimmy Dore is a fucking horrible person. All of these people that were like part of this big progressive movement, yeah, were just like not good people. And then to be fair, like for Trump, his coalition fell apart completely too, right? Like he fired or hated every single ex-staff, every single his lawyers and everything that worked with him as well. So yeah, I just don't think those movements maintain a lot of cohesion. Yeah.
And that populist strain of the right, that not anti-authoritarian, anti-establishment kind of strain of the right that you're talking about, where they just basically have a fundamental mistrust of the organs of power, but they don't have a huge ideology beyond that. What's causing that? Do you know? I mean, one could have been forgiven for thinking that was a Trump-generated phenomenon, but now DeSantis is popular. Does it outlive this moment?
It's probably a mixture of a few things. Republicans by nature are less trustworthy of the government than Democrats are, so that plays into it a little bit. Trump was very not trustworthy of the government, so obviously he amplified that a lot. And they probably just fed into each other. Yeah.
I sometimes wonder. Yeah, I wonder whether or not America is entering a phase which some European countries have had, where it's just going to have this significant minority of people who are right-wing populists, like France has Le Pen, and there are just these wings of conservatism that aren't conservative, that are actually quite left-wing on economic issues. They're sort of pro-union, they're like pro-worker, they're anti-free trade, they're pro-giving money to people, but they're also highly energized about being xenophobic and identitarian towards the white majority.
Yeah, I don't know if this exists in real life, but online we used to call these people third positioners. They were kind of sort of like the online Nazis, but basically they're people that were very fine with left-leaning economic programs. Like they would be okay with socialized healthcare, they'd be okay with strong unionization, big minimum wage. They just didn't want brown people to have any of it. So they were like very big on racial stuff. They were very big on curbing or eliminating non-white immigration, stuff like that. Yeah.
Also, it may not be fair. Maybe we're caricaturing it by saying they don't want brown people to have any of this stuff. They would probably say they just don't want brown people to have more of it than a race blind.
Depending on how honest, how many drinks you get them. Usually they'll say like, yeah, if people want to immigrate here, they should be coming from Europe and not from Mexico or Muslim majority countries or stuff like that. Yeah.
Depends who they are.
Anybody that supported Trump. I mean, Trump pretty avowedly said he wanted to ban Muslims from immigrating into the country. He wanted to build a wall between us and Mexico. He wanted to reduce Mexican, he said it all pretty avowedly. Like, I just take him on his word. But yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, but you can't necessarily think that all of his voters agree with that.
They might not all agree with it, but they all co-signed it. So
yeah, they will tolerate it. But then we tolerate a lot of things. We, speaking broadly of the left, from Biden or whatever, or the Clintons, that we wouldn't endorse.
Mm-hmm.
True, but caveated. Right now, they're not the same. The left wing, if you're on the left, you tolerate what? Something you don't like about what Biden did? I mean, like what? Like you have like a disagreement over maybe the stimulus, the second stimulus, the American Rescue Plan. Maybe that was too big and it could have been pared back a little bit. Okay, like that's whatever. Who cares? Or like policy positions, like normal, ordinary policy positions that people hold. And like, who cares? There's always gonna be disagreements about that. But on the right, you have to overlook a couple of different things. Like one of which is xenophobia, which has been promoted by Donald Trump, and the second of which is, and this is the bigger one, illiberalism. This anti-democratic tendency. The idea that elections are only real if we win them. Like the idea that, oh, hey, look, even though I lost, I should remain in power. Like that's insane, right? That you can't have a democracy if one of your two major parties, not for long at least, you can't have a democracy if one of your two major parties believes that. And we have a two-party system, not a multi-party system. So obviously, ideally, we should have like 15 different, or well, maybe like 7 to 10 major parties. I think that's probably ideal to have like 7 to 10 major parties, and maybe you can have like a few small ones, like 1 or 2 seats. But I think that's generally ideal. And in that situation, it probably wouldn't be so bad if one of those 10 parties was authoritarian. But no, in a country with a two-party system, with a first past the post system, if one of those two major parties doesn't believe in democracy anymore, that's a major fucking issue.